The news reports get more bizarre by the day.
A 74-year-old woman is behind bars after admitting that she robbed a bank at gunpoint in Fairfield Township near Cincinnati.
Investigators say she might have done it to get money to send to a scammer she met online.
A worldwide network of scammers seems willing to go to any length to cash in.
She says a man claiming to be tech support and told her 7 hackers were buying child porn from her Wells Fargo account and that she needed to move the money immediately. He was very convincing. He was even able to give her information that she hadn't provided, her bank account numbers, even that she had recently used her checking account to buy flowers. He knew it all.
Internet and phone fraud have become exceedingly profitable. The Federal Trade Commission says that consumers reported losing more than $10 billion in the United States alone last year. But the consequences can be even more dire than lost life savings.
81-year-old William Brock received threatening calls last month saying his family was in danger and demanding money. And then the scammers also called an Uber driver to pick up a package from Brock's home. Brock then confronted her with a gun, believing that she was connected to the threats he'd been receiving, and now he is charged with murder.
If you think you are too young, too educated, or too savvy to fall for crimes like these, you are putting yourself at risk, experts say.
In my mind, the number one reason why people fall prey to fraud is because they don't think that they are the person that will become a victim of fraud. So when they receive the call or the email, they think, okay, I can engage in this conversation. No, but nothing is going to happen to me. So my most important advice to individual is think vulnerable. Always think that they can scam anybody.
In this episode of the Ohio State University Inspire podcast, we tackle common myths about who gets scammed and why. We talk to a behavioral scientist about how scammers use psychological tactics to get inside people's heads, exploiting vulnerabilities that people might not realize they have. And we learn from an Ohio State professor of consumer science about the best ways to protect yourself from what experts call a pandemic of fraud that is growing ever more sophisticated. I'm Robin Chenoweth. Carol Del Grasso is our audio engineer. Inspire is a production of the College of Education and Human Ecology. If you spend time online or have a smartphone or an email account, let's face it, we're talking about almost everyone. You have been targeted by scammers. You click on the wrong link, and your computer seizes up.
Important security message. Your computer has been locked up. Your IP address was used without your knowledge or consent to visit websites that contains identity theft virus. To unlock the computer, please call support immediately.
You get a call saying you qualify for student loan forgiveness. A bogus email tells you that your PayPal or bank account has been compromised. These and other scams have been going on for years, so you might think that you're wise to their tricks. But as technology gets smarter and communication becomes more seamless, it's getting more and more difficult to spot the rogue players. And even the tech-savvy and financially literate are getting defrauded.
New research shows young people are being duped more often, and they're losing millions of dollars.
A new study from the Better Business Bureau shows that young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 are the ones losing more money to scams than older adults. Scammers are using Instagram and X to target many high school and college students.
Yaniv Hanak is a professor of decision science at the Center for Business and Society at Coventry University in the United Kingdom. He spoke with me and Ohio State's Cecilia Loibel, a professor of consumer science in the College of Education and Human Ecology. They are both members of the International Association for Economic Psychology.
If you just look at the numbers, the estimates is that about $5 trillion a year are being defrauded, either from individuals or from organizations, etc. To put it in context, this is roughly the budget of the US per year. If you asked me a year ago, as an expert on fraud, Yaniv, can you be duped? I would have been confident, cocky, and I would say never. Never. Have I been victim of fraud? You bet it. I presented my research to one of the ministers' department in the UK, and they're all counter-fraud experts. So that's their daily work, to detect fraud against the government. So these are individuals you can think that eat, drink, breathe, sleep fraud. There were about 200 people in the audience, and I asked naively, that anybody here is the victim of fraud, assuming that nobody would raise their hand. About 50 people raised their hand, and these are the people that were willing to raise their hand.
People try to hide it because it's so unpleasant and touches a nerve to be scammed and being taken advantage of. So I believe that adds to the psychological burden of fraud.
It's not just elderly people anymore, right?
The data shows, so if you look at the actual data of who is being scammed, elderly are not the most common population by far. Middle age. If you look at trend, young adults at TikTok, we're talking about adolescent, rising number of, I do not know precisely what they take from them, but there are rising number among them.
Data by the Federal Trade Commission, in fact, dispels a lot of misconceptions. People in their 30s reported more fraud than any other age group last year. 20 to 29-year-olds reported more fraud than those in their 70s. And people 70 and older lost less money, by far, than middle-aged victims of fraud.
If you think about, if you were a scammer, who would you like to scam?
I think you'd be scamming the person with the most money, right?
Precisely. So imagine if I can scam, not that I'm going to, Elon Musk or Bill Gates, all I need is one time. If I can take, a good chunk of their holding, I can retire happily ever after.
Right.
First, it's people with money. Then they might have individuals with slightly less money, middle class and above, and especially people that might have money in their bank. And these are the individuals that think probably the most of themselves as it's not going to happen to me.
News reports and conversations with those who are swindled bear this out. Here's James, a retired police officer who appeared in the Daily after being defrauded of $900,000 in a timeshare scheme.
I didn't want to believe that I had fallen for this. I didn't feel I was that foolish and stupid when it came to this. I guess I didn't want to believe that I could be fooled.
This man in the UK fell for a business-related scam that cost him $10,000.
In hindsight, I can't believe I was so stupid. The part of me that feels extremely violated is the part of me who thinks I would never ever fall for something like this. Like, I have so many years experience in this. I have like a computer science degree. I am so familiar with the world of scams that someone like me should never ever be falling for this. However, they were so ridiculously convincing with all the right names, all the right profile pictures, saying all of the right things, that at the time they actually had me thinking those were all the right people.
Fraudsters have dreamed up every kind of scam, touching every aspect of life and every kind of person. Grandparent scams in which imposters use AI to generate voices of family members in distress. Romance scams, IRS scams, Social Security and debt scam.
Precious metal, cryptocurrencies, or real estate investment.
Student loan forgiveness scams.
The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, received 495,000 fraud reports in the first quarter of 2023.
The fake job scam, where you interview, get hired, and give the phony employer your bank account number so they can deposit a hiring bonus.
It's everywhere. You almost can't escape it.
You cannot. You can think of it as a pandemic. The extent of it and the scope of it and the type of fraud that is being perpetrated on all of us constantly. They know the name of your boss. They know the name of your friends. They harvest information from social networks in order to identify information and capitalize on that. they're really at the front of technology, unfortunately, and they're able to use it without any scrupulous, nothing stopping them from using AI now for really pushing the boundaries. So if fraud was bad so far, I don't want to be a prophet. My prediction would be that things probably going to get worse, and their capacity to fool us, to imitate. In the UK, at least, in many cases, you get phone calls from the bank, so they will be able to imitate banks or other such institution, credit card, banks, social security, tax, etc. Far better, and our ability to distinguish between them, between what is real and what is scam, will be much harder to detect in the future.
So how do you stop it? You might do what Loibel does. Never answer your phone unless someone from your contact list calls. Many scammers don't leave voice messages. However, the worldwide fraud network is very reactive, Hijack says. Fraudsters impersonating businesses or government officials have shifted tactics since 2020, the FTC says. They are calling less and emailing and texting more. You should apply filters to emails and not take risks by answering unknown texts. But if you find yourself innocently stepping into a situation where someone asks for bank information or to send money or gift cards or withdraw cash from your account, it pays to familiarize yourself with the psychology behind the scammer's game. Hijack uses the cautionary tale of Charlotte Coles, a finance journalist in New York.
And she writes how she never, ever dreamed of her or never seen herself as a person who can fall prey to scam. And she writes how she handed $50,000 in a shoebox to somebody in a car that she doesn't know.
Here are excerpts from an audio recording of Cole's story in The Cut, used with her permission.
A polite woman with a vague accent told me she was calling from Amazon customer service to check some unusual activity on my account. Had I recently spent $8,000 on MacBooks and iPads? I had not. The woman, who said her name was Krista, told me the purchases had been made under my business account. I don't have a business account, I said. Krista transferred the call to a man who identified himself as Kelvin Mitchell. He said he was an investigator with the FTC, gave me his badge number, and had me write down his direct phone line in case I needed to contact him again. I'm glad we're speaking, said Kelvin. Your personal information is linked to a case that we've been working on for a while now, and it's quite serious. He told me that 22 bank accounts, 9 vehicles, and 4 properties were registered to my name. The bank accounts had wired more than $3 million overseas, mostly to Jamaica and Iraq. Did I know anything about this? No, I said. Did I know someone named Stella Suki Kwong? I don't think so, I said. He texted me a photo of her ID, which he claimed had been found in a car rented under my name that was abandoned on the southern border of Texas, with blood and drugs in the trunk.
I asked Hijack to break down how the scammers were operating.
They create an element of trust. First, there were CIA, the Federal Trade Commission, there were Amazon, fraud unit, or whatever it was. So they try to establish a trustworthy relationship as much as they can in the first initial stages, and that is by giving names that we all trust, like the CIA, like the Federal Trade Commission, or the bank, or the police, things that we usually trust. So once you trust those individuals, you have less reason to suspect that they are cheating you or committing fraud.
This whole authority figure thing, though, I don't know if it's the same in Britain as it is here in the United States. We're really taught to revere authority figures. And does that play a part in these scammers being able to dupe us?
Big time. Yeah, big time. If you look at what we know from research about communication and persuasion, authority is one of the chief factors where people are obeying or following or adhering or accepting Although there's been a lot of erosion over authority of, for example, government, or maybe it's partially the story. There's been a lot of material out there in social network, etc., fake news, not fake news. Actually knowing what is true and what is not has become a much harder task for the average person and also for the sophisticated person.
Then he read me the last 4 digits of my social security number, my home address, and my date of birth to confirm that they were correct.
The phony FTC agent transferred her to a, quote, colleague at the CIA, who told Coles the same details about the illegal activity, but knew still more about her.
Then he asked more questions about my family members, including my parents, my brother, and my sister-in-law. He knew their names and where they lived.
They are able to create further trust and reliability by providing you with some information, not a lot of information, but some information that is sufficient for you to drop your guard even further, so they might know your name. They knew that she had a child, a son. They knew the last 4 digits of her social security.
All this information was likely found in the internet and on social media searches and on the dark web. But all the while the scammers are building this false trust, they are engaging in the ultimate psychological deception. Call by call, text by text, they are inducing panic.
A home in New Mexico affiliated with the car rental had subsequently been raided, he added, and authorities found more drugs, cash, and bank statements registered to my name and social security number. He texted me a drug bust photo of bags of pills and money stacked on a table. He told me that there were warrants out for my arrest in Maryland and Texas, and that I was being charged with cybercrimes, money laundering, and drug trafficking.
They create a state of as much panic or fear as possible. But the next person she spoke to, she was already on the FBI most wanted for channeling money to Jamaica and to Russia and dealing drugs and being involved in a wide range of criminal activities. So you're not thinking straight.
Your reality is distorted. Intense fear and panic causes reptilian fight-or-flight modes to kick in the brain. The high-level thinking, what Hijack and Loibel call System 2 thinking, takes a back seat. The scammer has hijacked your mind. So, when he tells you to tell no one, not even your spouse, what is happening, you might just comply.
This kind of chaotic scenario that is being presented, they present to you eventually some order and resolution.
I see.
They create the chaos on a certain matter, and they are, as the authorities, they are able to solve this chaos or this predicament that you are in.
He explained that the CIA would need to freeze all the assets in my name, including my actual bank accounts. In the eyes of the law, there was no difference between the real and the fraudulent ones, he said. I'm going to help you keep your money safe.
What could have stopped Charlotte Coles or anybody who is scammed from putting $50,000 cash into a shoebox and putting it into a stranger's car? You must break the psychological grip that scammers have on you, even for just a moment. Cecilia Loibel.
I believe is one step is to slow down before you take action, to think it over, to wait a day, or wait just an hour before taking action. Is it a request that comes suddenly and unexpectedly, and just to step away for an hour and then review it again? That's a good advice anyways when doing difficult or high impact things.
If possible, talk to somebody else. Even have conversation with your pet, in the sense of the moment you verbalize it, you might be able to realize that this is out of the ordinary, that this is not something that would typically occur. So if I spoke to my wife, if I had brought my wife and I said, look, what do you think about this? What is going on? She would have said, Yaniv, It's a scam, can't you see? Think about, would you recommend that to your friend, to your parents, to somebody else? Would you tell them, yes, put the 50,000 in the box and give it to a stranger now? The moment you verbalize it, what it does, it brings in your, what we call system 2.
Yes.
Which is
System
your
2?
more system 2, more your intellectual level. What many scammers do is they build on your emotion. They kidnap your intellect, they put it aside, and they stress you to think something really bad is going to happen to her. To think, if she would have thought about it rationally, if she had a moment to reflect about it, if she had a conversation with her partner, they would have said, you're insane. Of course it's a scam. But she was in this world that the scammers are able to create for us.
The IRS, banks, courts will never call or text you asking you for money. Any police officer or federal official asking for money for any reason would be charged with extortion. It is your constitutional right to talk to a lawyer about any matter at any time. Scammers can manipulate caller IDs to be any name or number they choose. In a crisis, a bank's app or website are the best places to find contact information. It's a lot to keep track of, but there are people out there to help guide you. Dr. Leubel, I wanted to ask you, you're teaching students who will later become financial planners for people. My financial planner went through our college program, and if there were ever something to come up, I probably would be talking to him. Is that something you suggest to people? Call your financial planner and ask them, does this sound right?
Definitely. Families, individuals should work with their financial planners before they make a decision. And if something doesn't look right, I recommend it. And financial planners often perceive themselves as educators to provide individuals and families with a good, solid financial education on many aspects of the financial marketplace. So I would think scams and fraud issues are part of the conversation.
Having trusted relationships with a banker, a financial advisor, a lawyer, an accountant can be invaluable when you are in a pinch. But to really fight financial fraud, it's going to take more, Hanak says.
Just telling people be careful, be on guard is not going to be enough. We need the government on various levels, all of them being involved and setting limits, for example, working with social networks. TikTok, as I mentioned, is another avenue, and many others are really breeding ground for scams. So there's really need to be an orchestrated effort for various organizations, such as government, such as social network, high-tech company.
Think of the bank. If you go to the bank now and you never send money to Jamaica or took large amount of cash, there should be a mechanism in the bank that says, look, if Robin takes her 50 grand, which is almost everything that she has, suddenly in cash or wants to transfer it to some unknown country for unknown business, we put a stop to it and go through a procedure. The procedure can be, we want to see, we want to wait, we want to verify. There can be some protocol to mitigate it and to help us. We are humans. That's what they count on, that we are humans and that we panic and that we obey rules. When the police come and ask us for information, we provide them. So this is where we really need the companies to assist us, whether it is Amazon, Facebook, whoever, to help put stricter safeguards, and banks, because a lot of money is being channeled from banks to these nefarious activities with very little oversight.
Yeah, it's been a swell experience. All of it brought on by evidently my stubbornness to believe that I couldn't possibly be a victim.
I really want to stress we cannot be careful enough and on guard enough.
To read about more ways to safeguard yourself and those you care about against fraud, See the link in our episode notes.